The first story of the day is all over the news. It's the biggest story in America right now, especially because of, what the media's agenda is. It fits right in hand. But, I got to keep it real. I don't care if it goes in favor of Trump or against Trump. I'm going to tell you what's going on. Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer and the lawyer of many other people, pleaded guilty to tax evasion, bank fraud, and campaign finance law violations. And I'm referencing now a Forbes article. I have to give it up to Forbes because I always complain about how biased the media is. This is a really great article by Forbes. It was no really political bias, just got straight to the point, what was going on. So I was able to take notes and really break down exactly what's happening as opposed to like a bunch of political bias, intertwined with it. So what happened was Cohen pleaded guilty, like I said, to tax evasion, bank fraud, and campaign finance law violation. So what happened with the tax evasion? We're going to start with that. First off, he was charged with 8 counts of tax evasion, making false statements. 8 counts of tax evasion. He failed to report more than $4 million in income to the IRS. Other activities included real estate brokered sales and Birkin bags. I guess he was selling Birkin bags. If you guys don't know, they're French handbags that are pretty rare and expensive. So, they really dug deep on him to be like, man, he didn't pay $4 million. He brokered a real estate deal, which he got money from that he didn't, claim to the IRS. And he's apparently selling Birkin bags, so the more you know. So he owes $1,495,305 to the IRS. So that's how much he evaded taxes. That pretty much has nothing to do with Trump or Trump's campaign. Who knows? It didn't specify in this article like what year that was from. I'm sure it was probably not even within the last 2 years, but once again, it didn't specify. But the guy's evading taxes like many celebrities do. You got to pay your taxes, buddy. You can't be doing that, especially when you're around Trump, because they're going to investigate everything about you and find that stuff. So they found it. He owes $1,495,305 to the IRS. Now let's go to the bank fraud. So what did he do to commit bank fraud? That was another one of his charges. Well, I could sum it up really quickly. I won't waste your time. He made false statements to an institution, aka probably a bank, and to get credit. So it's lying to a bank in order to get credit. That's bank fraud. He committed it. But the catch here that I'm sure the media is not going to talk about is it started, in 2010. So literally, once again, has nothing to do with Trump. The first two things, tax evasion and bank fraud, they have nothing to do with Russia collusion. They have nothing to do with Trump. It started in 2010 as far as the bank fraud. I'm just throwing it out there. These are things that the media is not going to talk about because they're super, super hyped. And I hate to be the party crasher, but it is what it is. And the third situation, which does involve possibly the Trump campaign, and I say possibly literally for a reason, you're going to find out. But, it basically was a Trump campaign, let's be honest. I'm just referencing the Forbes article. He apparently committed 2 campaign violation laws. This is Cohen. He worked with an individual, according to Forbes, who owned a magazine to help deal with negative stories, tried to squash the story, I guess, involving Stormy Daniels, if you're following what the media said over the past year, although this Forbes article didn't mention it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So he assisted to, I guess they had a story out and they must have presented it to him. Somehow he knew about the scoop of the story beforehand, and then he basically gave them money so it could be purchased and the publication would avoid publishing it. But we've already heard this for literally a year, and payments were disguised in a series of entities. So on that note, I just want to say Trump recently, it was like a half hour ago, so this is a breaking scoop. Trump was on Fox News, I believe, and he said that he didn't know about the payments until afterwards, and then he had mentioned reference to this didn't come from campaign money, so it wasn't really, part of the campaign money. It was separate. So overall, these are the 3 charges. This is like the breakdown of what actually happens as opposed to all the hoopla and, hype around it. Is the tax evasion had nothing to do with Trump, the bank fraud had nothing to do with Trump, and the campaign violations were for something that was, squashing a publication with separate money, not campaign money. So on that note, I want to say, before I get into as far as campaign violations, has this ever happened before? Has anybody committed campaign violation? Is this new? Is this treason? Is this an impeachable offense? Well, of course not if you're not buying into the hype. Obama, according to Politico and Washington Post, committed one of the biggest campaign violations in modern history and owed $375,000 for a series of events that led him to break, at least one. I don't know if it was multiple. I didn't get that far into the article, but he broke campaign finance violation laws during his run and owed $375,000. So breaking a campaign violation, and Trump claims in his interview, you can decide how you feel. Trump says, my thing with Michael Cohen, he's like, that was personal money. That had nothing to do with the campaign. Whereas the Obama one, he said, was literally involved with campaign money, which is true, but you can determine for yourself how big of a, stretch that is of how involved Trump is in that. But overall, I just want to say there's something very, very important about all of this Cohen stuff and Manafort stuff that I know certain people understand, certain people don't want to listen to, and it's become such a sports team sort of thing where you have people who hate Trump. There's three categories that I categorize people into. There's the people who just viciously hate Trump. They're watching MSNBC, CNN, they're dialed into like Rachel Maddow and people like that, and they just want to take Trump down at all costs. And there's politicians involved in this too. They don't care if it goes against what they thought a week ago. Like, they just really want Trump out of there. They think he's really, really dangerous. That's fine. That's a group of people. Then there's the people in the middle. There's like the progressive socialist or like unpolitically affiliated people where they don't like Trump and they don't necessarily want him to like succeed, but they know that, what's happening with the Mueller investigation is completely ridiculous and unfair. There's millions of people who feel this way. They don't like Trump at all. They can't stand Trump. They don't like his policies, but they know that the Mueller investigation is like completely out of control and like not even remotely credible or helpful. And then there's, of course, Trump supporters who are just gung-ho about it and just like, anything Trump goes. And then there's like the Ben Shapiros who secretly hate Trump and want to take him down and pretend like they're conservative, but every turn of the way they act like a Democrat and try to take Trump down. So there's that crowd too, the Ben Shapiro type crowd. But anyway, without just throwing a little side joke blow, but being serious there, I want to talk about, there's a big scoop that I think a lot of people are missing. Some people know. There's an old saying, if you find me the guy, I can find you the crime, which is, goes against if you're, innocent until proven guilty. So it's easy, just to be honest, especially with politicians and wealthy people, if you stalk them and try to find the crime before you actually have a crime, it's not going to be hard. It's actually, in my personal perspective, it's incredible that Trump hasn't been found of something even guiltier than what he's done, because they've spent 2 years researching, finding, stalking people around him, investigating them, raiding their offices, and still to this day you have a tax evasion, a bank fraud that had nothing to do with Trump, and a minor campaign violation that they're trying to hype up that probably isn't even near the $375,000 fine Obama campaign violation, which is fine. People violate the campaign. I'm not a big deal, but there's a difference between them finding this organically, like the IRS finding this stuff, and them harassing everyone around Trump to try to find information that leads to collusion. See, I have no problem with Michael Cohen getting fined. He evaded tax. He should pay his taxes. He shouldn't be committing bank fraud. He shouldn't be lying to banks. I have no problem with him getting charged. I have nothing involved in Michael Cohen. I've never met the guy, and to be honest, it doesn't sound like he even really likes Trump. But there's a difference between the IRS finding that out and them saying, hey, we think that Trump colluded with Russia, so we're going to do all this stuff, and we found a crime that Paul Manafort committed. Okay, that's fine. I don't know Paul Manafort either. I don't think he should be in solitary confinement. I think that's insane. But, okay, they found a crime, but those crimes have nothing to do with Russia-Trump collusion. And the craziest part about all of this, if you take your emotions and your biases aside, whether you love or hate Trump, is Russian collusion, foreign collusion, by definition, by law, is not even a crime. And there's no signs, even the head of the intelligence communities have admitted, there's no signs and no evidence that Trump even colluded with Russia. So what Trump tweeted out last week, although it's not going to be very well received among people who don't like him, he's 100% true. They started this whole investigation off of like a circle of, Bruce Orr, Peter Strzok, the DNC funding this, British spy, so it's literally foreign colluding with a British former intelligence agent to create a dossier that they self-funded and presented to FISA courts as if they just had it. Oh, we found this documentation that they didn't explain that they were the ones funding it. They were the ones writing the Yahoo News articles and handling all that. So they use that as justification to spy and start bringing on this side Justice Department. This is not the IRS doing its work. This is not the Justice Department doing its work. This is the losers of the election presenting fake and doctored evidence that they themselves funded to use as justification to try to take Trump down for a crime that literally doesn't exist. I'm not saying he colluded with Russia. There's literally still no evidence of it. But even if Trump colluded with Russia somehow via finances or via promotion, there's literally no law against it. So even at worst, even if it was true what they're saying, which I don't think it is, Trump doesn't think it is, after 2 years of investigation, there's no proof. It's not even a breaking of a law. So this is the precedent that Trump haters and Democrats are setting. They hate Trump so much, they're not even trying to rationally look at the situation where it's like, okay, we made up a fake crime that literally doesn't exist. There's no proof that Trump committed the crime that literally doesn't exist. If foreign collusion was a crime during elections, it should be. I believe it should be outlawed now. But if it was a crime, a lot of politicians that these people support would not be in the business. They would not be walking around free because there's documentation from The Intercept that Hillary Clinton received funds from Saudi Arabia. There's, documentation of Dianne Feinstein working 20 years with a communist Chinese spy. There's, dozens of other politicians who are literally colluding into foreign elections, intervening not only, politically and socially, but literally like financially and strategically, getting involved in other people's elections and also having foreign influence into our elections. This is not something that Trump created or founded. This is something that they lost the election and decided to blame on him, even though they're 20 times as guilty of it. So I think foreign collusion should probably be a crime, but it's not. That's just the way the law works. So they started an investigation off of stuff that they themselves presented without telling them that they were the ones funding it and creating it, with literal foreign collusion. They colluded with British former intelligence to create this dossier. So they literally colluded with foreign governments to make a side Justice Department that is stalking Trump and stalking everybody around Trump to find a crime that doesn't exist. They haven't found any, remotely even proof that this even happened. And instead they're taking down people around him for crimes that have absolutely nothing to do with this fake foreign Russian collusion crime that they invented that doesn't literally exist. So it's a really crazy precedent. And you're setting the precedent for every U.S. citizen. If they stalk you and raid your house and look through all your emails and look through all your finances and look through all your drawers, and they find out that you have money that maybe is not accounted for by the IRS, and then they charge you, and then they said, oh, we were coming to your house because we thought you might be a Russian agent. This is the precedent that people are setting. I mean, there's millions of people in the United States, millions of businessmen, who, if the FBI just raided their house for no reason and started going around stalking all their information, could probably find some unaccounted for money similar to Manafort and Cohen. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying to do it. I've never done it. When I file my taxes, I claim everything that I made because I don't want to get, I don't want to have to owe money. But there's millions of businessmen doing this. There's millions of people evading taxes on the low and doing certain things with their finances. There's millions of people, that are maybe selling drugs illegally and doing stuff in the United States. I'm not saying it's good, but if you allow the United States government to create a side Justice Department run by somebody who was, ex-FBI director, you're literally opening the door to them to be able to, if you give me the man, I will find you the crime. Even if this was Obama or Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, I would say, in my rational mind, I would say, I don't like Bernie Sanders. I'm not a huge Obama fan. Although, to be honest, I wasn't an Obama hater. You didn't see me around hating on Obama either. But I would be like, this is insane. If Obama is so bad, if Hillary's so bad, if Bernie Sanders is so bad, you shouldn't have to do all of this stuff to find out the proof, because there's more proof of other stuff going on without even investigating it. So you shouldn't have to play the game of, you find me the man, I'll find you the crime. Start looking around for foreign collusion, which is a non-existent crime that never happened, that was literally fabricated in the minds of people who wanted to have justification to regain control. And now they're going around to anybody remotely, loosely related to Trump to bust them for unrelated charges. And this is insane. If this happened to you or your friends or your family members, you would be crying, you would be screaming, because it's not even legal. It's totally against democracy or, basic set of laws. And a lot of lawyers know this, but because people hate Trump so much, they've done mental gymnastics to convince themselves that it's okay. It's okay to create a side Justice Department off of a crime that literally doesn't exist, with no proof that Trump committed the crime that literally doesn't exist, to then target people around him and charge them for things that have nothing to do with the fake crime that you created. It's absolutely nutty. And the IRS, they should be doing their job anyway. I'm not hating, but it's like, why didn't you know about what Manafort and Cohen were doing before? Why did it take a Mueller investigation into a non-existent crime of foreign collusion that has nothing to do with banks and tax fraud? So overall, it's another nothing burger. Just to be honest, his bank fraud has nothing to do with Trump. It started 6 years before. His tax evasion had nothing to do with Trump, and it's something that dozens of people do, something that millions of people do, but only a select few of them get caught. And if they started doing this to everybody, you'd have millions of people going to jail, because they literally just be running around charging you for things and accusing you of things that they can't do. But this is why we have our rights, because if they literally stalked you and stalked everybody and came banging on your house and started stealing all of your stuff with no proof, no warrant, or no idea of a crime, and then they found something that's like not even related to that you owe. I think that's why we have certain things in place, privacy and freedoms, to not get harassed by the federal government. But apparently that's okay. And I'm not justifying anything that Cohen and Manafort did. I'm just being honest. This is not a good precedent to set in the United States. If this is okay with people and it gets applied to U.S. citizens, kiss all of your freedoms goodbye. And the tax evasion had nothing to do with Trump. The bank fraud had nothing to do with Trump. And the campaign violations were so minor, they don't even equal to what past politicians have done, admitted to, and it was in the news. And I heard nothing like this. I didn't hear Republicans and conservatives all over the media and social media saying, Obama needs to be impeached because he committed a campaign fraud violation. And that, once again, was actually Obama's campaign. It wasn't somebody loosely, related to the campaign or tightly related to the campaign, however you want to spin it. It was literally the campaign that committed the violation. So overall, it's another nothing burger. I just broke down exactly what the tax evasion, bank fraud, and campaign finance law violations is. But this is a total story of, if you find me the guy, I'll find you the crime. And they're trying so hard to charge people around him for stuff that has nothing to do with Trump, that happened 5-6 years before they even worked with the Trump campaign, and stuff that literally has nothing to do with Russian foreign collusion, which isn't even a real crime. They've admitted multiple times on CNN and MSNBC, I've seen them say, even if we do find collusion with Russia, which they haven't, which they probably can't because it probably doesn't exist, even if they found it, it's still literally not a chargeable crime. So the only thing keeping this alive is the hyper-partisan, complete ridiculous, mentality that we want to take Trump down, and the networks, will do it for the ratings. So I'm just trying to save you 5 years of complete delusion and being angry all the time, because it's not a crime, and they haven't found that crime. They're just trying to figure out things around and pressure people around him to push further and further and further to hopefully maybe one day possibly find a crime that might even possibly not even be related to the crime that doesn't exist that they said they were investigating in the first place. It's one of the wildest things I've ever seen, and I just pray that people come to their senses soon.